it's hard for me to realize that I'm the last one of that original board that's still around. I didn't think I was that young at the time, but now that I think about it, it's I've been around a lot longer than those guys have been gone. The uh, Joe was a marvelous guy, Joe O'Grady. I remember, I remember uh, going into a 7-Eleven for a cup of coffee, and as I'm going in, Joe's coming out, and he said, "How you doing?" And I was having a bad day, and uh, I know Joe well enough to say I'm not doing so good. And the first thing out of his mouth is, "Who are you working with that's new?" What a what a priceless thing to remember. Uh, we got to give this thing away, or we don't get to keep it, and that's a big plus. Joe had been in. I don't know if he was ever at the 12-step house, but I think he still has the record for dry out joints. It was something like 25 or something like that. It was a large number of dry out joints that Joe had been in. Uh, and they were all none of them were Hazleton like, no Betty Fords, nothing like that. It was Cook County and Elgin and things of that nature. But he was, it was his idea. He felt that rather than have it's a long way. If we got guys, we live in Park Ridge and we got guys in a 12-step house. That's a long haul to go in there for meetings and stuff like that. Now we get it all the time, but he felt that we should have some place out in the burbs, and he started talking it up. Got a bunch of us who said, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea, Joe. Go ahead. Let's see what we can find out." uh, Joe's really the one that did the work. He's the one that talked to the city of Des Plaines and got them to okay the idea. Uh, he talked to Bremers and got them to okay giving us the second floor, and it was him that I'm sure that there were other guys involved in it, but Joe was the one that was the force behind it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Uh, In fact, if someday they wanted to change the name from the First Step House to O'Grady's First Step House, I don't think anybody would uh, would argue with it. I certainly wouldn't argue with it, and there's nobody else who's been around long enough to argue with it other than me. So that we structured the house exactly like they structured the 12-step house. I remember having a meeting with Phil Asplund, who was on the first board. Phil and I went to Buffalo, which is that ice cream shop. It used to be in Edgebrook, and we met Dan Garrity there, and Dan was one of the board members of the 12-step house, and we talked to him about what they did and how they did it, and that's how we structured it. The one thing that stands out from that meeting, as we're finishing up and we're getting ready to leave, Dan says, "Remember, it's really up to him. If he wants this thing to work out, it's going to work out, and if he doesn't, it doesn't make anything make it doesn't make any difference what you do. It's not going to work out." And fortunately, he wanted it to work out. And I'm thinking to myself, this has been a long time. I don't know if 40 years that the First Step House has been around? Something like that anyway. One thing I learned on this program early is a day at a time. And it was a big influence in and it's something that I put into my life. Uh, my my siblings don't call me for somebody's birthday if it's 2 weeks away. They call me on Friday and say, "We're having a party on Sunday. Can you come?" Because they know that I don't think as far as 2 weeks away. It's it's a day at a time. It lets me stay in today. And that's an important thing to do, particularly if you're an alcoholic. You got us the first resident. And I'm trying to remember his last name. I think his first name was Ray. I don't know if Ray ever got it. The last I heard, he was living in a mobile home up in the UP and inviting anybody up there who wanted to come. Uh, and like I said, I don't think Ray ever got it, but I can tell you quite frankly, is Ray kept an awful lot of people sober, trying to get him sober all those years. So, that's the important thing. You know, I didn't do this for me, for you guys. I did this for me. If I don't give away this program, it doesn't work. And it's the same thing. It was the same thing 40 years ago as it is now. You know, why do we have the first step house? Because there were a bunch of guys who needed to stay sober, and they knew that this would help them stay sober. And that's why we did it. No, if we help some guys on the way, so much the better. But realistically, it's because we needed to stay sober. And that's the key thing to keep in mind. Now, I don't I can't think of any other benefit that the First Step House has had for me other than that. It's helped me stay sober a long time at this stage of the game. But and I ran the patients meeting at Lutheran General 1 month, and in fact I probably did it a couple of months. But this particular night I had Joe O'Grady and John Morrissey. Most people won't remember John. John's been gone a long time, but he was a young guy. Had a brain tumor, and that's what took him uh, early on. But John was up there, and he was giving his talk, and this, that, and the other thing. And Joe gives me the elbow, and he said, "Mike, what's going on?" He says, "He's giving him the eight talk, and there's not a ripple out there." And I said, "Joe, you know, these guys, they're patients here. And they come to this meeting, they kind of float down the aisle and hover over the chairs, and then they just hover over the chairs. So they're all they're all on cloud nine, up on lithium or something anyway. So it's not surprising. Remember, you're here for you, not for me, not for them. It's for you. So uh, also, John was John's company got three-way calling very early on in the program. And if John called you, odds were you were not the only one on the phone. So you better be careful what you said because he'd have somebody else on the line at the same time. And he'd call you in the afternoon and we'd have a short meeting. It's like my sponsor said, you want to be an old timer? Don't drink and don't die. That simple.